All right. Happy Monday, everyone. I'm going to share my screen. All right. Everyone see my screen okay? All right. I'm going to add a form real quick. Have to move our faces over. There we go. Okay. So today I really wanted to dive into some of the forms and talk about compensation because I've been seeing some really sketchy things out there right now. So when it comes to compensation, there are multiple ways in which we can get paid. So obviously on the listing side, the seller's paying us. That just is how it is. Um, on the buyer side, though, there are three different ways that we can get paid. We can get paid on the cooperating broker agreement, the CBC. We can get paid because it's on the agreement of sale, on the ASR, or the buyer can pay us, in which that's on the BAC, on the contract. So knowing where these need to go to be accurate is really important. So we'll start by looking at the listing agreement because when we are talking about, like, let's say our buyer is interested in a house and we're going to write them an offer. What is the first thing that we should be doing? Say it louder, lady.
Calling the agent.
There we go. Yes, calling the agent and asking, are they offering compensation and where do they want that? So that question, where are we putting that? If it's being offered, comes down to this listing contract. So if you're the seller's agent and you get a phone call that says, hey, are you offering compensation? You should be referring straight to the listing contract and what you had them sign for. So on the first page, it shows down here the broker fee. This is what you're getting paid as the listing agent. That is what this section is. And I think there's some confusion on this. On the second page, where it says cooperating compensation offered, this is where the compensation to the buyer's agent would need to be put. Okay. So if you have it here on page two, where your seller's like, yes, I'm paying them 2.5% commission. This means that it needs to come back on the cooperating broker agreement. That is the form that you use if anything is written here. Now, one of the big things you're going to learn today is I absolutely hate the cooperating broker agreement. I'm going to tell you all the ways I hate it. So when I'm doing a listing contract, all of mine say zero. And when I'm not saying that that's right, not saying that that's best practice, I'm just saying that this is the way I've decided to do things since the change, and it really works for me. Because I'm going to tell you the flip side. As a buyer's agent, if I call and they're offering 3%, I'm taking 3%. I'm taking whatever they're offering. And every agent's going to do that. If you're offering something, we're taking it. Whereas if you put zero here, it makes people question that compensation. If they have to write it into their offer, that's what I do. I tell everyone, bring it on the offer, bring it on the agreement of sale. Now they're trying to make a competitive offer and ask for compensation. Maybe they're not going to ask at all. Maybe they're only going to ask for 2%. I do find even myself, I only ask for like two. If I've only showed them like one house and we're writing an offer, that number might be lower, or maybe they're just able to pay me. So it causes them to be more competitive with how much they're asking for. Also, I've had multiple contracts come in on my listings that have like 2% or 3% buyer agency commission, and we counter offer without that, and they accept it. So now I'm saving my seller money because it's not really needed. So I think that that's important. So what I do on this page is I just put zero, make them bring it on the agreement of sale. Now, there's a reason for that. With the cooperating broker agreement, When does it need signed for it to actually be like binding? Before- Speak louder.
Well, I don't know exactly because like I want it signed right away.
Why?
Well, if we get too far, I'll never get paid.
Yeah, that's the big thing here, guys. If I am getting a cooperating broker agreement, like let's say I've called that buyer's agent and they're like, yeah, we're offering 3%. We want it on the CBC. You bet your butt they're signing it. They're signing it before I submit my offer. Because if I'm not putting that on that agreement of sale and that agreement of sale says zero, the sellers agreed to all of that. I can't go back and change that after those signatures are on there. So I'm really pushing to have that signed prior to or like with that offer so that I know that I'm definitely getting paid that. Because if you don't have that cooperating broker's agreement signed and the agreement of sale is signed and you're officially under contract and you get weeks into it, there's no guarantee you're getting paid. And I'm seeing this a lot. Just recently, there was a Alta that came before my face. I got to look it over, and there was no buyer agency commission on it. So I looked at it very clear. I went back into the file. I pulled up the listing contract. I go down in the contract. It says zero in the buyer agency commission section. So I go to the offer. I'm looking at the agreement of sale. It says zero in the commission, like the buyer agency commission on the offer. So I'm like, oh, okay. So the seller or the buyer must be paying their own agent's fees. So I'm looking at it and it's a corporation, right? It's an LLC buying the property. And there's a paper in that shows that the agent is related to the buyer. So, by just not knowing all the facts, looking at this offer, looking at the listing contract, it's safe for me to assume that maybe the agent works for the corporation, so they're just not charging any fees. It's their investment property, right? Why would they need to charge any fees? So I'm like, yeah, Alta looks good. Settlement's happening, and the buyer's agent's like, where's my money? Like, what do you mean? There is no money. There's no money for you here. Anybody want to guess how much commission was missing in this situation? $11,000. Dead serious. $11,000 is unaccounted for. Now, I'll tell you right now, if I was that listing agent, sorry, you're not getting paid. You better figure it out because they never called and asked about cooperating broker. They never did any of that. I don't know. It's so weird to me. But luckily for everyone involved, it was taken care of a settlement. A change in terms was put into place, and they did get the money. So, but I've seen this on small ends too, where I had one that was just $1,500 flat fee, and it was missing. And the week of closing is asking for the cooperating broker agreement. So when I click into the cooperating broker agreement, if they do want to use a cooperating broker agreement, in case anybody hasn't seen it, this is what it looks like. It has the listing broker company, your company, and then what that fee is. Sometimes it's a flat fee, sometimes it's a percentage. But this is an agreement between the listing brokerage company and your brokerage company. So that's that one. And there's no problem with asking them to send you this over. So if, like, for instance, if I call a buyer or a seller's agent and they're like, yeah, we want it on the CBC, I say, okay, well, can you send me a signed copy of the CBC over and then I'll sign it and send it back with my offer. That way you're not waiting for them to sign it. That's a good way to go about it. Because it only takes a couple seconds to do this document. And then you're guaranteeing that you're getting paid. There's an agreement in place. When I first started, prior to the changes of 2024, uh, compensation was listed on the MLS. And we've talked before when it comes to when it comes to like the refrigerator and stuff like that, we just talked the other day about how you go in there and you save a PDF with the timestamp of the MLS. Well, that's what I would do whenever I was writing an offer. I'd go into the MLS and I'd grab that so that it showed the compensation that was being offered. That way, if they went into the MLS and changed it down the line and said, no, we were only paying 2%, I've got the proof that it said 3, right? And then if a cooperating these agreements, listen, it was always pulling teeth. It didn't matter how many times you would send over a message saying, "Hey, I still don't have the CBC yet signed from you." It was like the week of closing sometimes when you get it. But you always knew you were guaranteed that money because you had the advertisement showing that that's what they were doing. They just had to get this signed. You could fight it more. Without having that in there now, all you have is word of mouth, like what the people are saying. So it's really important to have this signed so that you're guaranteed to be getting paid. Because the last thing you want is to be sitting at the closing table and realize yours is the check that's missing. You did all this work and now there's this issue. It's a huge problem. So with the buyer agency agreement, down here at the bottom, it shows the compensation that you're requesting. Does anybody know? Here's one of your questions for the day. So hold on. Can you, oh, I guess I can't really see everybody's face. There I can. Is there only 6 people on? No, I think there's more than that. All right. I'll wait and ask it later. Maybe. I'll just ask the question. Anybody can free for all, and I'll ask questions later because I can't see everyone to see who's raising their hand. But can you get paid more than what's on your buyer agency agreement?
No.
Somebody shout it out. Good.
Before
Right.
or after the offer is submitted, Brittany? Be my follow-up
After?
question. After.
Okay.
Okay. Yes. After your offer is submitted? No, you're right. You cannot update it. Okay.
Right. I mean, you can update it. You can update it. I just had this happen. So my buyer agency agreement had a 595 broker fee, but on my cost sheet and on my everything else had 695. But whenever it came back to the office, Diane's like, "There's $100 overage. So you either need to get this change or they're getting their money back." So you can do a change later, but they have to agree to it. The thing is like if you have 3% on here and you're getting 4% commission, you have to get your buyer to agree to change that. So I always say I'm putting 3% on here because I can't take more than that, but I can take less. So if they're offering 2%, that's fine. I can take less. I just can't take more. So I'm not going to write these at 2% and then come across a house that's offering 3 and be like, well, I guess I'm giving the 1% back. None of us are doing that. That's crazy. But you can make changes to this if you need to. But this is where you put that. So if it is not on the agreement of sale and it is not on the cooperating broker agreement, and your buyer has said, yes, we're paying you your fees, this is what the brokerage is going to look at. This is what it goes off of. And then on the agreement of sale, this is my favorite place to put it. Whether I'm on the listing side or on the buyer side, this is my favorite place to put compensation. Anybody think they know why? Everyone's so quiet. It's Monday. I forgot. So everything in 2024 was about transparency, right? Being transparent, having these conversations, and people being able to negotiate compensation, right? So why I love it on the agreement of sale and why it's the only place I really want it to be is because it is right here for the seller and the buyer to see. so that your compensation isn't you pulling the wool over somebody's eyes and getting paid this, that was a stereotype for years. Agents just show up the day of settlement and collect their big fat check, right? And we all know that that's not true. But by putting it on the agreement, you're going over it with your buyer every time that they're signing prior to sending it to the agent. So they're seeing right away what you're asking for and how you're structuring their offer. If they're in a competing situation and they're trying to win, like this is something that they're seeing affects them. I think that it's really good when it comes to transparency. And then same with the seller, they're able to take a look at this and figure out exactly what each part of their breakdown is for costs. And then the seller is the one accepting that. The seller and the buyer are both saying, this is what you're getting paid. So you're guaranteed, like once that offer is signed and accepted, you don't have to worry about chasing down an extra document from the listing agent and all of that stuff anymore. Very upfront and secure. What's that head shaking for over there? Oh, never mind.
So I need you to reiterate that a little bit clearer because some of that did not I wasn't tracking what exactly you were saying. So you're saying if you use a CBC, you still put your full commission in this block?
No, that's what we're going to
Okay.
go over next. That's right.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because that's been the problem we're seeing lately. Sometimes no, let me start this way. Get my thoughts in order. So, if the compensation is written in the listing contract for that the seller is offering compensation, it does not go here. What we're finding across the board is CBCs and it being on here, and then it looks like everyone's getting paid twice.
Well, I've always done
So
it.
that's why the
I've always done it both places, Brittany, because then it's like I have an extra document. So
no,
you're
now
saying
they're
that
getting paid twice.
it should only be one place or the other.
On the
Yes.
agreement of sale, though, it says in addition to any other previously negotiated. So technically you would get 5% or 6%, depending what percentage you're using.
And I'm going to give you an example. I had one
Oh,
recently,
oh, I don't mean in addition. I don't
but
mean
that's
in
what this
addition.
is.
Okay, okay. Well, I'm on my phone and it's very tiny.
No, you're good. It's fine.
Sorry.
But no, we're
Okay.
seeing this. We're seeing this happen. And protecting your client's money, whether you represent the seller or the buyer, it's really important to know where to put these and where they're accurate so that you're not costing your seller more money. That's exactly why we're doing this today because there are circumstances where you need to use multiple of them. For example, on one of the houses that somebody was working on, they were offering a flat fee of $1,000 on a $200,000 property. I'm not taking just $1,000 flat fee. So that was on the CBC. That's what was on the listing contract. So that's what's on the CBC. And we filled that out. $1,000 flat fee on the CBC. Both of us signed it. But I need more than that. So I was willing to take, I think it was 2,500 flat off of that. So I put the other 1,500 on the agreement of sale. The seller signs it saying, we understand we're paying you more commission. Yes, I'm getting paid more commission than the listing agent, but hey, protect your money. Know your worth. Whatever. I know mine. I'm not doing it for $1,000 flat fee. That's crazy. So at the end of the day, when we're looking at the Alta, you see the cooperating broker fee of $1,000, the agreement of sale fee of 1,500, but I had a minimum on that contract of $3,000. So my buyer also paid me $500. So I was using all three at one time. And you can do that. If you know the amount of money that you need to be taking and they're offering 2%, Chris has done this. They're offering 2%, but you're working for 3. Put 2% on from the seller, however way you need to do that, whichever way the agent says to do it. And then your buyer's paying the other 1%. That says it on the agreement that you signed with your buyer. Did that clear that up? I know it's tricky. Here's the thing. If you're questioning this, come to one of us. Because yes, I definitely want to sell houses and I want to help people find their dream homes and all them cutesy things that we post on Facebook. But at the end of the day, it's because we get paid to do it. That's our job. So we have to be protecting ourselves and our money. Go ahead, Rossi.
Just to simplify it down just a little bit for everybody, because I see some confused faces on the chat. If you're getting paid by the listing agent who has pre-negotiated your rate, then it's on a CBC. If you're getting paid by the seller, it's on the ASR. And if you're not getting paid by either one of those parties, you're going to default back to whatever is in your BAC. So there have been plenty of offers that I have written where the seller is not offering any commission and the buyer is willing to pay my entire commission. So if you do not, if it's being paid for by the listing agent on a co-broke, then you use the CBC. But if you're asking the seller to pay for it, then it goes on the agreement of sale. So what happens, almost 99.9% of the transactions that I am part of now, over the past couple years, 2 to 2.5% goes through co-broke, and then another 0.5% or to 1% is going on the agreement of sale. So I'm getting my full percent, but we have to put it on there the right way. You're going to deal with a lot of people. I just dealt with this over the weekend. There is no CBC. Well, people were sending me offers with a CBC. If it's not on the agreement of sale, you're not going to get paid because there is no CBC. So sometimes we have to actually train other agents we're working with on the right way to do things. I did have one person who was adamant that it doesn't matter. They like using the CBC and they're not going to put it on the agreement of sale. Okay, that's fine. You can fight that. Like Brittany said, when title sends out the final alta, you can review it and try to figure out at that point in time why you're not getting paid. But I have email traffic telling you to send it to me on the ASR because the seller is paying you. I am not. So sometimes we have to actually train people that could be in our brokerage, but we have to train other agents outside of the brokerage on how to actually use these forms the right way, because just letting somebody do whatever they want to do because they're being ignorant about it is just going to cause a whole lot more tidal wave issues towards the end of the transaction, as opposed to just pissing them off in the beginning and saying, no, submit your offer the way I told you to. So that's my 2 cents.
I really, 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 really wish that they'd get rid of the CBC completely. I want it gone. I hate it. If I could be at every meeting that there is to tell them exactly why I don't want it, I would be. I'd be there with bells on because, which is crazy because when this started in 2024, I was like, oh, how could you get rid of a whole document? I started talking about that, but I hate change. Very quickly, I started seeing why. And it's because the CBC, in my mind, is the most risky way of getting paid. I know how much I've had to track down agents to get them to sign it over the years. And putting my pay in another agent's hands, sorry, no, nope, don't like that. Um, so I truly, really prefer it being on the agreement. Plus, that's the whole reason all this started, transparency, being honest about your commission and it being negotiable. That's why all of this changed in 2024. And I know a lot of you guys are new and you don't know what happened before. But I think that it's just so important. So every single one of my listing contracts that I've had probably in a year and a half have had zero on page 2 of the listing contract, because it's amazing to see in competing offer situations how competitive people are with asking for that. There's so many offers in competing situations that don't ask for any compensation, and it makes them stronger offers.
Can I ask you a question?
Hmm.
I sat down at my computer because I have always done the CBC. So I'm looking at the agreement of sale on page 2. And under seller concessions, it says in addition to blah, blah, blah. So where are you guys saying you're putting your percentage that's not additional on this agreement of sale.
So if you're not collecting anything in addition to the CBC, Danielle,
Yeah.
you wouldn't put anything on this. You have a CBC, which is an addendum to the agreement of sale, and you would reference that on the final page of your agreement of sale.
So if I'm not using, so Brittany just said she hates the CBC. So if you're not using a CBC, where you're saying on the last page of the agreement of sale, page 14 is where you're putting your commission?
No,
No,
I'm putting
if
it right
you're
here. So if there's
Wait,
no CBC,
hold on,
I'm putting the 2.5, 3% right here.
Brittany,
hold
let
on,
her go. Let
hold
her
on.
go. Yeah, go ahead.
I can't see. You guys are on my phone. I'm looking at my computer. Can you tell me what the line says? What line number?
If you're not getting paid through a CBC, you're getting paid by the seller. That's what you're
Yeah.
asking?
Yes.
It would go on line 25.
25. So seller concessions, and then in bold, it says, in addition to any cooperating, blah, blah, blah. That says in addition to.
Right. If there's a CBC, if
I
there
put
is no
nothing.
CBC, that means there's a 0% CBC. So in addition to 0% CBC, you are asking for the seller to pay 3% of your buyer agency commission.
Oh, I do not like that at all. That is very confusing.
Sure.
When you look at the wording, it is. But
Mhm.
basically, if you just figure everything is 0 and this is what I'm asking for, and it's just plain and simple, I want 2.5% or I want 3%, and you just put that on there and you don't overthink that, you quickly adapt. Believe me, I hate change. I'm a paperwork junkie. This was extremely hard for me in the beginning. When it first changed, a lot of my contracts, my listing contracts, still had the compensation on there until I realized, holy crap, as a buyer's agent, I'm asking for less. I saw that trend in myself. Oh, you're offering 3%, I'm taking it. And then if I'm writing a competing one where they say bring it on the contract, I'm like, oh my gosh, I really want my client to win. I'm taking 2%. I really want them to win, right? And I started noticing that on a seller side, that's how you get more money for your client. That's how you're representing them in the best way you can because every agent is going to take what's offered. But when they're put on the spot of asking for what they need and structuring that offer around that, all of a sudden, those numbers on there change dramatically. You'll get 1%. I've had 5% or no, 0.5, sorry, a 0.5%. I've had all kinds of things come through, and pretty much most of them, I went back and said, we're willing to accept your offer without paying the buyer agency compensation, and I've gotten them accepted. It's incredible how this has changed everything. And once you get used to that, it makes so much more sense.
So as a list agent, what I like to do is have a CBC prepared, and when people schedule appointments, have that automatically sent out to them. I come from way back in the day where even though they were previously advertised what commission we were getting, when we had 6 month or more listing time periods, we would go back and ask the seller to pay us more. So I have people who will get the CBC and will still come through and try to put it on the agreement of sale. So I go into the agreement of sale and put a 0 there because I do have a CBC. Or vice versa, if they put it on the agreement of sale, I'll take the CBC that I previously sent them and make them sign it at 0%. Just so it's super clear, because this document, the agreement of sale, says in addition to, and I don't like those words, but
Yeah, that's
If
why
you
I was confused about why you were, because
if you have a CBC, yeah, and you
yeah,
put some on here, then you're paying twice.
yeah, no, mine all say, I mean, I just pulled up my last agreement of sale for my last transaction, and I didn't put anything additional. I just almost lost my mind with what you were saying. I got so confused.
I'm gonna stop sharing the screen and just let you guys like ask questions and talk. Is everybody, especially like the new people, are you understanding where to put these? Each transaction is going to look different, and you're going to see all kinds of different combinations or different ways of doing it. Every listing office is different. There's a lot of offices that say we don't even do the CBC anymore. I'm coming across that a lot, and I think that that's good. But the big thing here is just ultimately, yes, finding them a home they like and winning the offer is important. But please make sure that you're double verifying how you're getting paid. Because I am that listing agent. The one agent on our transaction did not get paid. Um, I mean, the one buyer's agent. Sorry, getting them back and forth is hard. But yeah, like when it came down to it, it was the week of closing, and he's hounding me for a CVC, and I kept telling him, I don't have one. My listing agreement does not say that, and you put zero on the contract. And he's panicking. He's saying, well, can my buyer offer more? He doesn't have the money. Can he offer more? That would sometimes take a whole new appraisal, raising the purchase price to cover that. If it didn't appraise that high, you may have to get a new appraisal. Now that's costing your client more money. Um, it gets really messy. And when it came down to it, that's part of the buyer's agent's job is to make sure they're communicating. And I think that that's the best thing that's come from all this is communication's key. There are so many other amazing things that come from calling for that information. You start the conversation with, hey, I just wanted to check to see if they're offering compensation and where you want that at. And then you lead that conversation into, are there any terms that are really appealing to the seller that we could put, like, do they have a choice on a closing date? It's vacation season. Some people have vacations booked. Maybe the listing agent will tell you, yeah, they're actually out of town for this and this time. It'd be great if they could do it beforehand. Now you have something that's appealing. You can also ask other questions like, do you have any other offers yet? What do they look like? Sometimes I'll tell you. It opens a whole conversation. So it's great to have these. Does anybody else have any other questions at all with any of this? I do want to add one last thing with this because this is very important too. If your buyer is the one paying you, please make sure that your cost sheet that goes into SkySlope for review does show that. Okay, so most of you know I love my PAR cost sheet. Some people use the lender cost sheet. If you are using a lender cost sheet, when you call them to do the cost breakdown, make sure you tell them, hey, on this one, my client has said that they're going to pay my commission and this is what I'm charging so that it's on there. Because yes, it's on the buyer agency, but if I have that written for 3% and I've only showed a couple houses and I say, I'm going to just do 2% on here. Getting that on the cost sheet is the proof that everyone's going to be looking for as to what you're actually charging them. So it doesn't matter which way you do that, just make sure that that's on there so that nobody's blindsided. Because when we're looking at a mobile home transaction where it's only $1,500, missing that might not be such a big deal. But when we're on a $400,000 property and we're looking at $11,000, that can make or break an entire transaction. And the last thing we want to see is you're through all the inspections, you've got the clear to close, and the Alta comes out, and everyone is like freaking out because where's this 11,000 coming from? So it's super important to be detail oriented and just make sure that you're covering all of these things. All right. Rossi, is there anything else? I'm going to stop recording.